Hey everybody, it's Bust with Battles with Bust number 433, and today we're doing battle with Illaoi Swain. And so we haven't touched on Illaoi Swain in the Heart of the Huntress patch. This is one of these decks that ever since Swain caught his big buff like 3 or 4 patches ago, it always kind of rises up near the top of the meta, but it never quite captures that top spot within the meta. But I think this is a deck that's very powerful in the current ladder environment right now, and it's something that we're seriously considering taking to the Runeterra Open here in a couple of days. And so if you're not familiar with Illaoi Swain at all, to get you kind of caught up to speed, this is more of a mid-rangey slash control style deck. It's got this massive pile of removal in it, has great ways to deal with smaller units with the parlays and the make it rains and the heavy metals. It's got some ways to deal with the bigger units and the disintegrates and the scorched earth. And then as you come out, churn through all of these removal spells, it has some very big card advantage engines for the late game, with the Leviathan coming down and drawing Swains, and then with the Eye of Nagakoboros just giving you that little bit of extra card draw that also ties in to the tentacle themes with the Illaoi and the Sea's Voice and the like that we're playing here. And so, in general, if you haven't seen the deck before, that's going to be your base strategy is, can I get some tentacles going, control the opposing board, and then finish off the game with a Swain. But the thing that really kind of draws me to this deck is it has a lot of kind of customization potential that we can look to take into the open. And so when we look at this deck list right here, the one that I have on the screen for you right now, what we're going to be playing over the course of the next 8 games or so, is what I consider to just be kind of the base list. This is the list that I feel pretty comfortable in taking to the ladder. It hasn't made any really striking changes to where we're playing a bunch of Scorched Earths to deal with the Nasus deck, or we're really going all in on protecting ourselves against the likes of Jinx Kennen. I feel like this is just the nice middle ground style of this deck that feels pretty comfortable to just go and take into the ladder. But if you are looking to take this into the Runeterra Open, to where you get to start saying things like, okay, well, I'm just going to ban Nasus, or okay, I'm going to play against Aatrox Vayne in the vast majority of my matchups, or you're going to say, okay, I really want to focus in on the likes of Jinx Kennen, that's where you really get to start making some decisions with this deck and where you want to customize. And so if you're looking to make some edits to this thing as the event approaches, I think you have to decide, do I want to just kind of pick on Jinx Kennen a little bit more, in which case you can start to look to remove maybe a copy of the Leviathan, you can look to remove a copy of Tentacle Smash or Riptide Sermon, just some of the more grindy style cards that we have running through this deck. Or if you say, okay, I think we're already good enough against Jinx Kennen and I really want to focus in on the likes of something like Aatrox Vayne, you can look to maybe start cutting some of the Mirai Wardens. You can look to add in Lord Broadmane. You can add in Riptide Rex. You can add in additional Scorched Earths if you think the big bruiser decks are going to be very popular. You just have so many customization options that you can really pull off with this deck that you can really fine tune it based on your lineup and your pick and ban strategy. But again, the list that we have here, this is what I would consider a nice middle of the road ladder grinder. We're cruising with the Mirai Wardens. We haven't gone too off the rails in terms of trying to out control the mid-rangey decks. I think that this is really a good list to pick up if this is your kind of first adventure into Illaoi Swain, and also a good deck just to take into the ladder. And so that's it. That's what we're going to do. That's what we're doing battle with today. But before the battles begin, we do have to go and pay the pay-to-win price, and we're on our secondary account. And I had the realization the other day, we typically don't pay the pay-to-win price on this deck because I'm not trying to spend a bunch of money on my second account, but you do end up getting all of these like gems and crystals throughout the course of your battles and adventures. And so, you know, we do have the opportunity to come in and turn some stuff premium, and I think today we can turn this Tentacle Smash premium. Look at that. We had those 200 gems that we get to spend on this stuff. Now we got that opportunity to get some additional premium tentacles on the board. Feels pretty good, man. Feels pretty good. So, all right, let's jump on in. And so, yeah, this is an interesting one for me in terms of the Runeterra Open. The way I'm kind of looking at the Runeterra Open is I still fit in this space to where I just want to ban whatever the most obnoxious Shadow Isles deck is. Ooh, actually up against Ahri Kennen. Haven't seen this one in a while. We need to get our maximum interactivity here. So I'll hang on to Tentacle Smash just to make sure we have something early, but we want to find our parlays, our Make It Rains, our heavy metals, just to blow up their elusives as fast as we can. Not what we mulliganed into, that's for certain. But as we look to approach the event, just kind of planning on banning Nasus, banning Heimerdinger Jayce, making our lineup as good as it can be in the face of something like a Jinx Kennen. And then I'd really like to kind of tune ourselves to being good against Aatrox Vayne. In this deck, it's kind of like right in the middle there against Aatrox Vayne, but I think we can improve just a little bit. But nonetheless, into this game, this was a bit of a weird start, right? You all saw us have the Watchful Idol on turn 1 and we didn't play it. You saw us go through turn 2 without Tentacle Smashing. I didn't want our opponent to see us, say, like tap out for a Tentacle Smash and then add a unit to the board. I didn't want them to be able to just kind of get these cheaper units on board for free. And so we just passed through those turns. And so now we have a bit of an opportunity to try and Tentacle Smash. I'm going to actually take down the smaller unit here, because this one just plays a little bit more in favor. Ooh, maybe we shouldn't. Maybe we should be targeting the Shadow Assassin since the opponent has so much mana. Like, I was kind of thinking in my head, it's like, well, his most effective unit is going to be the Dancing Droplet, right? If he follows up with the Navori Conspirator here, he's going to want the Dancing Droplet. Or I think this deck is actually playing, I don't know, Lovers and Sisters, whatever that new card is that recalls a unit back to your hand. And in that sense, we want the Droplet. But if he's going to physically play the card Recall, then we want to be hitting the Shadow Assassin just because it's so much more expensive to put on the board. I'm not familiar with this list. I think I saw a tweet about people playing that card. Rival Lovers, whatever that new fucking thing is called. We're never going to get it right. But I think that that's kind of what's in store here. All right, well, we need to start getting a little bit of board presence. I ultimately worry that if we add a Swain, we're just going to get tempoed out of this game. And so I'm looking to add in the Mirai Wardens just to get some additional dudes down. We'll see if we get an opportunity to Tentacle Smash this round. Like, I don't really care to come in and trade out the Tentacle on this board, and so I think we can just keep adding Mirai Wardens. And then on our next turn, we're kind of free to Tentacle Smash again and play Illaoi. I think now that we have this kind of double Mirai Warden draw, we need to really switch into this kind of Pirates mode to where we're just flooding the board and trying to force in damage.
You cannot win.
The chase is on.
Kind of interesting getting this point of damage on Ahri when we have Scorched Earth in hand. It's a bit of a dangerous block, right? There's the potential to disintegrate that Ahri when she gets into combat. I don't think we'll get too many sweet plays out of this, but if your opponent is attacking with Ahri and you kill the unit to the right of her, she doesn't do that dance thing anymore, and so you have a couple of opportunities to get her off of the board when she can't swap out of the combat. But we don't have any Make It Rains to try and bring that possibility to life. A little interesting here, though, if we do add the Swain to the board, we have the opportunity to play Ravenous Flock onto one of these damaged units. But let's see. Let's try and get this Ahri out of here. I don't think this is ultimately going to be too successful. This deck should have a bunch of... ooh, nice. I was going to say, it should have a bunch of counter spells, and then even something like Guiding Light would have been enough to get that unit off of the board. Now, I think we want to still just continue being effective with our mana. We're going to add this Blue Sentinel. I'm going to come in and Tentacle Smash one of these dudes, and then look to finally make a bigger play next turn, now that we're, you know, kind of out of this space of just getting tempoed off of the board. So this is fine. If you're not familiar with the tentacle smashes in Swain, these tentacle smashes do count towards his level up. So he's gonna be getting a couple of bonus stats here. Ooh, and a Make It Rain. Get on board with that. So I don't ultimately think Swain's gonna be too successful here, but it's going to kind of depend on the opponent's answer, right? Concussive Palm is just really slow in this space, so gives us a little bit of chance. And then if we do end up, say, like having this Tail of the Dragon on board with the Make It Rain, it's another potential Ravenous Flock target. There it is, Star-Crossed Lovers. I couldn't remember the name of this card. If we just call it enough dumb stuff, we'll eventually get it right, won't we? Star-Crossed Lovers. There it is. Let's see how much mana he spends. We are in this spot where we have the Leviathan and we can flip the Swain off of a Make It Rain. And so if he, you know, I mean, we could probably just make him try and spend the 5 mana, right? The bounce spells are pretty expensive in this space. And then if we go into next turn with the Leviathan and the flip Swain and we get the stuns onto his units, it's just going to be incredibly powerful. So I'm just going to go ahead and drop this Make It Rain. It's going to let us actually play a Ravenous Flock in the middle of combat here. It's really the only interactivity that we have left at this point. And can't do it in the middle of combat, right? So if the opponent just attacked with the Elusive, we wouldn't be able to target it with the Ravenous Flock.
Wild hearts
And
run
Ahri.
free.
Okay.
2 steps into moonlight.
Uh-oh. This is that spot we were telling you about, right? If we are able to take this Kennen off of the board, whether or not that's with the Ravenous Flock or him having to recall Kennen back to hand, then we can physically block Ahri and get her removed from the game. So definitely like seeing this attack come in. You can do the same thing depending on where she attacks, right? So if you imagine that he hit with Ahri, then the Droplet, then the Kennen, she's still going to get one swap, but we have the potential to continue removing her down the line. Now, do we want to protect the Leviathan more or Swain more? That's a interesting topic. Well, I guess at the end of the day, he can just Mark of the Storm somebody off of the board. Let's just block with Swain since he's the cheaper one. So now he has to Mark of the Storm Swain to get the stun to protect his Ahri. All kinds of stuff rolling through. Says that's too much. You boomed it too hard, Bust. You boomed it too hard. Alright, GG.
Raise the Noctora. Remember this day.
This is tough. We're catching up. I'm catching up to our LP on the main account with our secondary one here. I wanted to come in and finish off as much of the event pass as I could. It's tough. It feels like it's still a reasonable value just to buy. Like, I don't know how tough it is to actually collect the whole thing. Last season, we got like right to the end, and then the game was kind of like, okay, you can you can have it. It's fine. We'll make it a little easier for you. I don't know if this season is the same level of challenging, because I haven't seen nearly as much bitching about the challenge in completing the event pass, or if it's similar to the previous seasons.
Get to work.
But huge parlay here, huge parlay. This is a space to where opponent can't cast a 6-cost spell on turn 3 now. This is not a particularly good match up against Heimerdinger Jayce. It's one that we're, you know, if we get to play in the open, we're ideally gonna get to ban this out, but it is one that causes a little bit of problems. Now, I don't think it's worth just sitting around on this Make It Rain. We should be able to get a better Make It Rain along with one of these Disintegrates, and so I don't care to just come in and make that trade right away. We got a kitty wanting to hang out, I think. Come on, kitty. You want to be on the internet? Yeah, come on. He's walking away from me. Not the smartest cat in the world. Here we go. So, all right, how do we feel about this turn? I think this is okay to just go ahead and Tentacle Smash. Like I've really been kind of growing in the space more and more to where I want to get these Adaptrons off the board as fast as we can. Like it used to feel like a card you could just kind of let sit around for a while, and then if your opponent just got you with Production Surge, then it was kind of like, yeah, whatever. But I like being in the space to try and get this off of the board. You know, we have the potential, say opponent plays Jayce a couple of turns from now, to still Disintegrate, Make It Rain, and get this thing out of here. And then adding Illaoi this turn, assuming she gets to attack, we'll get to boost the Tentacle. And so that attack's not happening this round, but I think this is still playing out nicely. Alright, so Make It Rain first, Disintegrate second. It's gonna full clear his board. Feels pretty good, right? Here's Kitty. I want to see. It's Pepper. You all remember Pepper? Meow. She likes it when she doesn't like being picked up. Like none of the cats really like being picked up, but she tolerates it. And then she tolerates it more if you like pick her up and walk to the window, and then you start asking her if she sees any squirrels. That's what gets her going. She used to. We have a bunch of like chipmunks that run around in the backyard. I've never like lived anywhere that just had so many fucking chipmunks running around, but we've got them, and it's interesting in the sense that she used to kind of just like sit in the window and watch the chipmunks, but she's been doing it here recently. I don't know if she realized she's never gonna catch one or what the deal is, but it's been unfortunate for her. Life can be a struggle, can it, Pepper? You never catch those chipmunks. And a vengeance. Okay, this is kind of an interesting spot. I was curious like how close we could get to potentially having a point of damage on Jayce and then hitting him with Ravenous Flock. No, we don't have Ravenous Flock yet, but we're about to play the Leviathan, which means you're pretty close to having Ravenous Flock. But not quite there.
Let's get started.
We are about to have a Swain though.
Prepare the cargo!
And
the Donger.
Sure beats the smell of burning workshops. Artillery barrage!
Our Swain is flipped. We have a lot of potential on this turn to just stun his entire board. And so I'm going to take it just kind of a touch slow in this space, adding the Swain later. I would rather him just come in and drop a Vengeance on the Leviathan as opposed to our Swain, but we do get these backline stuns off of the flip, right? So if we play a Make It Rain and it hits face, it'll get a stun, and then if we pirouette face and target another unit, that will also get a stun. And so I think we should have a couple opportunities to pop off. And now, you know, these turrets are going to be on the small end of things, and so might be able to blow up a turret and get a stun. We got a lot of potential here on this turn. It's definitely scary. Like, we have to win the game this turn. His opponent just drew 1,000,000 cards, but he did just use his double, and so he can't Hex Obliterate either of our big plays, and he can Vengeance them, but he can't say like Shock Blast double. Our units are just too big.
Everything can use an upgrade!
Alright, let's see how much we can do. That's a make it rain right there. That's a make it rain. Oh no, what's he got, the Vengeance? That was such a good one. Oh man. Okay. I was thinking to myself, I wonder if we should play the pirouette first so that we can then respond with the make it rain. I didn't take that angle, but it is curious to me. Now with this, it's tough. I think we just need to stun out the health. I don't like losing our Leviathan to the Floor Be Gone, because then it doesn't get to deal the 2 damage next turn. But where do we stand with this? And so we have 9 power of Overwhelm. Yeah, we're just going to be too short here. Okay, GG. Ooh, hit the Vengeance. That's definitely, you know, a pretty decent spot to be in, though, in a matchup that's not very good, and then him needing to hit a specific removal spell to get out of it. I dig that. But that's the kind of space to where you can start saying, it's like, well, if you're going to be leaving Heimerdinger Jayce up in something like the Runeterra Open, maybe you look to start adding things like Riptide Rex to your deck. Just have that way to come in and blast them for 10 or so. What do we got here? Is this the Sun Disc? Zir, Nasus, Renekton? Hype in the chat, I guess. Everybody's about to get hype with this one. So let's just mulligan everything away and look for some of our cheaper plays. Found a Watchful Idol. Like to kind of zip out this game if we can. Get things moving early. See if that Scorched Earth pops up. Did we have Scorched Earth in our opener? I don't remember. It is pretty cool being able to Scorched Earth being able to Scorched Earth the Sun Disc.
My board!
Not a bad start so far. Can we just pass through this turn? The thing you have to start to worry about is going to be a Renekton, right? But Shadow in the Brush. I would assume that that's just Avenging Vastaya, right? It has to either be Avenging Vastaya, or all the ambush cards are out of
Life is too short for
Shurima, aren't they?
Lastinat Rame buys me a new sail.
Let's see. This should draw out the flip, right? He's not going to let the unit just die. I'd like to get it off the board if we're going to start trying to make these disintegrate plays.
First blood.
Okay.
What a shame for you!
Alright, let's get all the big boys on board. Not looking to attack with Illaoi this turn. Now that Renekton's on board, we're just not going to attack at all. But we're still in a pretty decent spot to start building things up. Without his Vastaya to protect the board, we should be able to run through this easy.
I go!
Alright, has anybody got their butt cheeks squeezed together just yet? Anybody squeezing them cheeks right about now? Let's see how this goes. So we hit Renekton and the Rockhopper. He can hit this with like a Rite of Negation, but if we make our way through this one, it's going to feel pretty good. Oh, did we miss Renekton? What the fuck just happened? It didn't land on the Vastaya. Who did that hit? Disintegrate on Renekton. It did hit the Vistaya. Oh, that's a bummer. This game's stupid. I was like, why did our Swain die? That's not supposed to happen. RN Jesus is not with us today. Alright, we can still pop on this next turn, though. A very powerful Tentacle getting ready to roll through. A lot of high-powered draws we can play on the opponent's turn. Let's see what happens. Sermon and Illaoi. Okay. Sorry we treated you that way, Illaoi. That was probably pretty sloppy that game, but it is what it is. Renekton coming in. He's gonna have a big ass board this turn. I don't think it's lethal, but oh, he didn't get to Rock Bear Shepherd. I thought he was gonna Rock Bear Shepherd his whole board down.
Cut them down.
Take it. I'll take 4. I wonder if he has a... Are there cards that just summon units? Like, I know there's the Azir card. I'm curious why he's starting to say line up things like the Clockling.
They will be civil, or they will be civilized.
Get a big Tycoon on the board. Interesting. It's like in the spot, I know that we have this Illaoi that we can drop, but I don't really want to count on Illaoi next turn. If opponent has a Quicksand, then the Illaoi attacks just don't really do what we need. So I think we want to add in a Leviathan that should shut down the opponent's attacks, and then might get to punch in with Swain. If we do something like Pirouette on the Tycoon, deal a damage to Renekton, and then find a way to do something with the Rock Bear. Like we have a few different ways that we can we can try and finish this off.
Victory awaits.
So here's Swain. We can look to
By my hand will Noxus rise. Grand General.
both Riptide Sermon and Pirouette. Oh, Jesus. Are you serious? Okay. Okay. Sure.
We move
I guess that was a sandstorm.
against doubt.
Are we just dead now? I don't think we're just dead. Like, he's only hitting for 13 if we block Renekton.
I am their end.
Come and get it.
I mean, what's the most we realistically need to prevent? I'm looking at just this. Blocking onto the 2-2. He could have an ambush. It's like I have a hard time imagining what's coming out of this deck. Like, Avenging Vistaya makes sense to me. Big Game Tycoon does not. And so, like, I'm curious why this thing is actually sitting around in a Sundisk deck. But with, like, the pieces of this stuff in here, I have to worry about ambush being a thing. But I think the second point to ambush, though, is if, say, we take Illaoi and just block a Renekton, and then he has the ambush, we just lose the game anyways. I mean, maybe we don't. We can still draw, like, a Leviathan off the top and maybe be okay.
Move or be moved.
Let's block the Tycoon. It doesn't have Overwhelm. So regardless of how bad things get with the Tycoon, it's not going to be able to kill us.
Life has so much to
So
offer.
I have Nagakoboros. Want to hit a Swain or hit a Leviathan. Didn't find any of the fun cards. Now I got to take something off the board. Maybe we should have blocked Renekton if we were just going to Riptide Sermon. Alright, this dumb card again. I mean, we can get really close on this next turn. We have 2 stuns out of the pirouettes. We have some potential damage that we can hit with off of these Make It Rains. Like, we can actually clear out, you know, a non-zero amount of this board. And so, is this the rally thing? Oh, Jesus fuck. Okay. No telling what this is. This is his big game tycoon created Shadow in the Brush, so it's not guaranteed to be an Avenging Vastaya. Let's see. So let's deal. Let's actually deal 1 to the ambush and then stun the Renekton. I wonder if we should have just made it rain on top of these. He can respond to the Shadows in the Brush. Okay. Oh my gosh, get me out of this game. That was weird. I think that we played that mid-game wrong, right? I don't like how those things went with the Avenging Vastaya. In the early game, I feel like if we'd... I mean, I'm like 99% confident that if our Make It Rain didn't miss the Renekton on the Disintegrate turn, then we would have just outright won the game. But I don't like how we got our Illaoi too involved in that early game either. So, a little bit of... You know, if we're playing well, I don't think a lot of those things there would have actually been a problem. Sandstorm, right? It is what it is. But into this one, I'm curious if we want to hang on to a Swain. This isn't a deck that should be able to like really deal with him, and he's gonna be like quite strong if he does like just hit the board. I guess this has probably got a bunch of transformery stuff in it. Man, I think I'm just gonna hold on to him, and then we'll hold on to heavy metal to ensure we have a way to deal with an early Teemo. This is like one of these spots to where I make mention of this a lot in recognizing what kind of Teemo deck you're playing against. So in the sense that if you're playing against, say, elusives, then your opponent's Teemo isn't particularly important. Right, it's in there just because it has elusive and it gets to maybe do some chip damage over the course of the game. And then if you're playing against like the Puff Caps Teemo, it's super important to just get him off of the board. But with this deck that we're playing here, with Sejuani and Gnar in it, this is gonna have like the Transformer style stuff that if you deal damage to the opponent, then your dude gets to flip. And so Teemo has kind of like medium importance here, right? They're trying to high roll those Puff Caps on the opposing turn to activate the Sejuani, and that's going to activate things like, I don't even remember what that shit's called anymore, but like the Pterodactyl, that kind of thing. And so just the spot to watch out for there. Alright, so let's prevent a bit of this damage. Like, we're just going to curve off from this point forward, and but our units will be bigger than what he has on board, and so I think this will be okay. Adding an Illaoi, he shouldn't have an answer. Pretty good draw with the Riptide Sermon being a 6-cost spell for next turn. Right, our attacks are all strong now. See if he's going to come at us with an Elixir of Wrath. Say, I'm getting my pokey stick one way or another. But see, this is what I'm talking about with those Teemos, right? Say he hit a Puff Cap this turn, and then that would be able to flip his Gnar. Gnar would be a real threat next turn. It's not like critical like against the real Teemo decks, but it's nice to be able to remove him and take those activation angles away.
Many are moved by fear. You are paralyzed.
Okay. I wonder if this deck plays Minimorph. That's the one you have to start to worry about when you have these really important champions out here. But Gnar doesn't flip till the end of the turn, so we have the chance to remove him with the Riptide Sermon. See how this goes. You know, if this doesn't work,
What can stand
you know,
against
like
my
the way that this isn't going to work is if he plays like a Three Sisters, then, you know, fucking fine. You know, if he wants to spend all of that mana to protect the Teemo, I'd feel pretty good about it. Do we want to get on the Swain train, or do we just want to open? Swain's just so good here. He's bigger than the Earth Sign. You typically find yourselves in these spots to where you just have to block the Swain. Otherwise, he'll just AoE you.
Born a patrician, I became a soldier.
Bow to no one.
How close is Sejuani? Ooh, she's pretty close to flipping. This should take a bit of work next turn, though. We might find ourselves a way to just drop a stun here. We can send Parlay to the face and get a stun. Definitely have some angles. Got to decide if we'd rather do it this turn or next turn, though.
Justify yourself.
Let's see. The combat trick. He can get, like, what he's trying to do is he wants to send Pokestick to face and flip. What the fuck? You just didn't do anything? Ooh. I don't know about that, fam. I don't know about that. I'm gonna say what he wants to be doing is getting Overwhelming with one and then getting the Pokestick in so that he gets a so that he gets a Frostbite across our team, but that was a very odd way to see that go. Still quite a strong spot for us, right? He can block the Swain with the Earth Sign, but then it really messes with the remainder of his team. How much do we have to worry about another Sejuani? He's only got 2 copies at the most, so there's only one more in his deck. Let's take this a little slow.
Prepared for anything.
Not too hard of a punish. Like, let's be real. He hasn't played a combat trick at any point throughout the entirety of this entire game. He's found way better points to play combat tricks than this one. I don't think he ever just gets us by parlaying this Teemo here. I think that we're all safe there.
Relish life's bounty.
Now, are we short of the lethal? We're only going to be hitting for 6. No, he's got a stunned unit.
A chance to live.
Witness strength.
Meet me. Witness truth.
So it was like 8 from Illaoi, 2 from the Warden, and 5 from the Tentacle, 15 in total. Hi. Oof.
Will remember.
That's tough. A lot of that game could have gone wrong. But it turned out okay at the end of the day. Oof. Not bad. Not bad. Marvelous chest. Likes dim titties out here. Maybe this is more about booty than about titties, am I right? It reminds me, there was a... I think I have the story on this right. I believe it was a Marvel character. It may have been DC, but I think it was Marvel. Her name was Power Girl. And the I can't. I think illustrator's the right word. I want to call him a fucking tracer. If you've ever seen, God, I can't remember the name of the movie. It was a Kevin Smith movie with My Name Is Earl, where he plays the comic book artist, and he says I'm not a. He draws the images. He's not a fucking tracer. But oh my gosh, we're getting way off base here. But the superhero character, her name was Power Girl, and the editor, whoever, kept telling the illustrator that her boobs weren't big enough, and so he went. Oh, I don't think that's how it went. I think he was mad with. I don't know. Regardless, he was mad at the editor for some reason, one way or another. And so he just made Power Girl's boobs bigger every episode after and after. So like episode 1, she had normal boobs. Episode 2, she had gigantic boobs, and they just kept growing along the way. And eventually, he got the attention of his editor by just her having a massive, marvelous chest. That's how he finally got the attention of the editor. He's like, these things are just way too big to put into print. I know I messed that story up. I didn't have it come together completely right, but it is what it is, you know. Alright, let's kill this Renekton. And so, we want to do this. We want to make it rain. We want to disintegrate to the left of that. Oh no. Can't do it in that order. I didn't want to lose our tentacle. So we do have to do it with the tentacle smash on the right and make it rain. Let's get that dum-dum off the board. I didn't want to lose our tentacle, right? The way I wanted it to go was we smash off the spell shield, then the disintegrate hit, then the make it rain gets the cleanup, but we at least got Renekton away. It was a pretty big investment of a unit. Probably just have to swing. We could kind of hope, right? If we have a Seize Voice and then opponent plays a card, then we Tentacle Smash, but that strikes me as being a little dangerous.
Wash away all the troubles you.
You can't actually OTK us with this Renekton, right? Famous last words. Famous last words right there. You can't actually OTK us with a Renekton. Here it comes. We're just going to get trucked. We should have probably tried to take him off the board. Like, before the Soothsayer came down, as soon as the Renekton hit, like, we aren't really invested in these tentacles, right? The downside to doing that's if he gets to protect him with combat tricks, but, you know, that's okay. Ruthless Predator, sure, he's gonna play a double my damage thing. Oh, he's not. Okay. Looks like we still probably died to a Cataclysm. We can't play our spells fast enough here. He's able to Cataclysm into the Mirai Warden. Maybe we could have killed the Mirai Warden fast enough, but... Oh, we're just ending the turn. Okay.
I got this.
It's just... I don't know, like, if he didn't have the Cataclysm last round, is he really going to have it this round? We have this opportunity to just add Swain to the board and parlay to the face, and then we can Soothsay.
Do you hear her voice?
It's just, we're 1 damage short if he has a single combat. But I mean, I have to imagine that if we're able to clear Renekton off of the board, then we win the game, right? Because it's just a basically big all-in Renekton deck. And so, if he's not here, then we're kind of free to just win.
Victory awaits.
We'll wait till he taps down below 4 before we add our parlay.
Through conquest. The slaughter will never end!
He's with
Don't
us,
want that one getting
right?
hit with the Rite of Negation.
Such
Trying to interrupt my Power Girl story with all of these,
History will remember.
with all of these games. Trying to make us focus on the game and not story time. Come on, dude. Alright, let's get one more game in. One more game. We're at the 45-minute mark right now. That'll get us pretty close to an hour. I don't know why they don't put Power Girl into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, known for her large chest. It's obnoxious. I do appreciate that they've gone pretty far from just being like, here's titties, you know. we're in a fantasy setting. This girl probably just running through the forest in like literal strings. massive cannons on top, super thin waist, practically naked, running through the forest elf. That's what fantasy's all about. Jesus. Costumes are much more tasteful these days. Much more practical as well. Alright, into the battles though. Ashe LeBlanc is pretty interesting. This is actually a pretty bad matchup for us, but it's one of these decks I start to consider for the Runeterra Open. It's a very polarized style deck to where it gets absolutely smoked by decks like Ahri Kennen, and then on the other end it also gets absolutely smoked by decks like Heimerdinger Jayce. It's really that kind of middle ground that this deck super preys on. And so decks like Illaoi Swain, decks like Aatrox Vayne, anything trying to use just a single unit like a Varus deck, these decks all have super big problems with the likes of Ashe LeBlanc. But I think if we're about to enter a meta to where everybody's third deck is Aatrox Vayne, then there's a real opportunity for Ashe LeBlanc to shine. Not entirely certain how I feel about it, but I wouldn't be surprised if a few of the people that top cut the Open did so with the likes of Ashe LeBlanc. It feels like a fairly decent meta call if you're into playing polarized decks.
Right to work.
What I mean by that, if you're not familiar with a polarized deck, if you take a look at like Illaoi Swain, it has a couple of matches that are over like a 60% win rate, but for the most part, like the good matches are like 55-60% win rate, and then the bad matches are guys just like doing fuck all this game. I'm gonna add in the C's voice. This feels like a turn, like he has to do something. He has to add some kind of unit and get something going. I want to add something to the board, but not our good somethings like Illaoi or Swain. But no, this deck, its bad matches might be like 55-45 in the opponent's favor. Our good matches are like 55-45 in our favor. It doesn't have any of those matches to where you're like a 75% favorite over the opponent. But it also doesn't have any matches to where the opponent's gonna 75% on us. And that's where you get in that space with Ashe LeBlanc, is it has some really good matchups, but also has some really bad matchups. The opponent might have disconnected. Nope. Still here, we're still playing the game, I guess. we're still battling. Nice draw with the Eye of Nagakaboros. We weren't gonna have a super strong attack out of this C's voice. Now that we're getting the Tentacle on board, we get to boom. If he actually just takes all of this, we can kill him with Make It Rain Pirouette. Yep, that's what I like to see. I tried to imagine what this opponent's draw looks like. It has to just be like I would imagine that if you had like an Ashe even last turn, he would have just played her. So it has to just be one of these hands where you have a bunch of flash freezes, and then you have a bunch of things like Abrosian Hearthguard and the 4/3 draw card kind of guy, and just he drew the wrong half of his deck at the wrong time. Maybe you should call it like the wrong third, right? He drew all of his flash freezes and drew all of his expensive cards, and then didn't pick up that third that's like LeBlanc and Trifarian Attacker and stuff like that.
Line up.
There she is. There's the Trifarian Assessor.
Against fear, against doubt.
Actually, we got the full clear this way. I was really intent on just tentacle smashing this Omen Hawk. I haven't paid enough attention this game, but we can make it rain. We can disintegrate the big guy. That'll full clear his board, and then we should be good next turn. That was enough. GG. So yeah, not a particularly telling match. That's not a very good match for us, but an opponent only plays like 2 cards across the course of the game, then you get a little bit of advantage in your favor. But nonetheless, good set of games. We can pull this up, talk about it a little bit more. And again, you know, I don't feel like we ran into too many spots to where, you know, I could really specifically come out and say, hey, this is a bad place for Mirai Warden, or this is a bad place for this or that. But you can start to envision some of these spots to where you can see the games really kind of drag out. And we're like, okay, well, we have these expensive cards. And so if the game just goes a little bit longer, we'll be okay. And then you also have these spots to where you can see where it's, say, like a Lord Broadmane would have been pretty good. You know, Broadmane plays quite well with Make It Rains and Parlays and can turn some of these crappier cards into some real high-powered plays. And so, again, this is one that I'm going to kind of, you know, keep my eye on over the course of the next couple of days. I'll probably jump into a gauntlet with this evening and see how it goes. My concern with my lineup, if you haven't been following along with what we do in Best of 3, I've been playing Scouts, I've been playing Jax Ornn, and I've been playing Aatrox Vayne. And I feel like we're about to enter this space in the meta to where everybody's playing Aatrox Vayne, and then we're going to start to see a rise of decks like Pantheon decks and Varus decks, and these are all decks that just like completely annihilate the likes of Scouts. Because I can't remember over the course of like my past 2 and 3 days of laddering, I've maybe played like Jinx Kennen once and Fizz Samira 0, and so it's tough to tell until you really get to like the Friday before the event, if that's just because people are testing their other decks or just for those decks just not going to appear. And I'm getting closer and closer to those decks just not appearing as much as we would expect. And so I really liked Scouts in the face of, you know, being a deck that was good, exceptionally good against both Fizz and against Jinx. And then it had a lot of very powerful matchups along the way. There's a lot of control decks in the format that don't like you just flooding the board. And I think we're kind of pushing further and further away from that space. And I also don't really like champion strength in this format. And so I can definitely see myself moving towards a deck like Illaoi Swain that has very somewhat similar, I should say, very to somewhat similar matchup tables to Scouts in the sense that it has a lot of trouble with the Shadow Isles based control decks. But it has good matchups against Fizz and it has good matchups against Kennen. But it's in the more of a space to where it's kind of a coin flipper against Aatrox Vayne. And you can look to improve that matchup with the likes of stuff like Lord Broadmane. And Scouts is a deck that just gets annihilated there. And so I'm looking to potentially take Scouts out for this. But I want to play it a bit more to see how I feel about it. But nonetheless, very powerful deck. Again, this has been kind of like a top 3, top 5 deck for the entirety of the past 2 patches. It's definitely been strong in the past, and I think it's quite strong now. And so if you're not looking to play it in the open, it's worthwhile to play, you know, just in terms to see what your opponent's getting into, or what your opponent's thinking and how they're responding and reacting, because it's definitely a deck you will encounter there. But nonetheless, good set of games. I had fun with that. I hope you did too, because that is going to do it for us today. So I hope everyone enjoyed the video. Hope maybe learned a thing or two along the way. And you had a good time watching. This is Bust, and we thank you for being here.